Well, you've heard Dr. Dickerson mention Dr. Tim O'Shea in a previous story. Dr. O'Shea is very well researched on the issues of vaccination and has even written a book related to the subject. The reality is more and more informed parents are choosing not to vaccinate their children. It's never an easy decision for a parent to make. There's always fear, worry, even ridicule from others who don't agree. Being ostracized in the community is never easy, but the decision is so important it can affect a child's life and health forever. So it's important to be informed on this issue, whether you are a parent or not. The research is out there, so let's have Dr. Tim O'Shea put it all in perspective for us, because in the end, this lifelong decision is only as good as your education.
So if you were a child growing up in the 1980s, if you were a baby, you were getting about 20 vaccines at that time if you followed the mandated schedule. If you got all your shots on shot day in the 1980s, you were getting about 20 vaccines at that time. By the mid-90s, this number had doubled. Babies who grew up in the 90s were getting 40 vaccines by the time they reached 18 years old, if they got all the recommended vaccines on the mandated schedule. It really changed since then. Today, a child growing up, if he's getting all the recommended vaccines, will be receiving 68 vaccines by the time he's 18 years old if he gets every shot on the mandated schedule, which most children are. The majority of children in this country get all their shots. So we ask the question, does the health of our children really reflect this enormous doubling and tripling of the numbers of vaccines we are giving our children today? This is one of the topics that we take a look at in the textbook, the new textbook, Vaccination is Not Immunization. This is a textbook that summarizes some of the literature, some of the references, some of the best references available actually in the new area, which I call problems with vaccines. And you may be surprised to discover that the objection to today's vaccine policies, the primary objections to the way we vaccinate kids today, is not coming primarily from the holistic arena or from the alternative medicine or the chiropractic arena. No, objection to today's vaccine policies is coming primarily from mainstream medicine, mainstream science, and mainstream law. And it is from this body of knowledge that this new textbook, Vaccination is Not Immunization, derives its sources. My target demographic, I guess, really for this book was the young parent, the parent who is first confronted with this decision, really, the decision of whether or not to vaccinate. Now, my opinion is that this is the most important decision that a parent will make in the life of a child, whether or not to vaccinate. So my opinion is also, how will that parent make the decision? Because I'm thinking that there's so much attention to vaccine problems today that even the parents who are just peripherally attentive to this will be wondering in the back of their mind, isn't there something about autism? I don't know for sure. Or isn't there something about mercury? Isn't there something about SIDS death? Isn't there something about vaccine injury? Is there any way that I'm putting my brand new baby into harm's way? Is there any possibility that I'm putting him in harm's way by vaccinating? So this is the question that I feel is a momentous decision for young parents to confront for the first time. And my opinion also is that maybe it might be a good idea not to get all of their information about whether or not they vaccinate from sources who make a living marketing and selling vaccines. So, as I said, this is an enormous new field, the field which I call problems with vaccines. And what I've noticed in doing this lecture, all over the world for the last 10 years, I always talk about how, You know, so many parents have come up to me in the last 10 years and they'll say, you know, Doc, I didn't vaccinate my child. And, you know, I'd always chat with them, but after a while, after the first few hundred times of that, I'd start saying, oh, really? And tell me about your child. What is the health of your unvaccinated child like in comparison with your friend's vaccinated children, let's say? And 100% of the time, the answer would come back to me, are you kidding? My kid is way healthier than all my friends' vaccinated children. And after that, I couldn't shut them up. You know, they went on and on just talking about how healthy their child was. Even if their unvaccinated child did get sick, he recovered, you know, in a day or so. It was very mild cold or something. And how, you know, he doesn't have any need for inhalers or ear tubes or any of the drugs and antibiotics that so many other children seem to be burdened with. And so it seemed to be something empirical, something that you could observe, something across the board. So at that point, this is several years ago now, I made this chapter on my website. The website is thedoctorwithin.com, and the chapter is called Parents of Unvaccinated Children. Parents of unvaccinated children. Now, to get on this list of parents of unvaccinated children, you have to fit 3 criteria. What are they? Number 1, your child is not vaccinated. Number 2, your child is in excellent health. And number 3, your child is in apparently better health than your friends' vaccinated children. Yes, I know it's empirical, it's anecdotal, right? Of course, it's not a controlled clinical trial, but just casually doing this, and I don't even write down half of the people that contact me, but over the years, you can look on my website and you can see a list of hundreds and hundreds of parents who fit these 3 criteria all over the world. And so it just seems to me to be an extremely important subject, the problems with vaccines, that a parent should take very seriously. So what I've tried to do in this textbook, Vaccination is Not Immunization, is make that process for young parents easier. I've done all your homework. There are over 300 references in this short book of 200 pages that will tell some of the best sources from mainstream medicine, mainstream science, discussing some possible problems that we might have with vaccines. As I said, in my opinion, if you are going to inject your child with vaccines, you should be sure of 3 things. Number 1, the vaccine is absolutely safe with no chance of harm to your child. Number 2, the vaccine has been proven to be absolutely effective. In other words, it really does what they say it does. It really prevents a disease. And number 3, that the vaccine is necessary, that the child truly needs your vaccine. And so if you are responsible for the health of your newborn, no one else is going to protect your newborn child. It's you who's going to do that. And the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to get information from people who are not necessarily making a living selling vaccines. Thank you very much.